Welcome to part 2 of the Unity XR VR hand controller tutorial. If you missed part 1, you should probably check that out from the link in the description below first, before you watch this video. Create a script called XR hand controller. We want to include the Unity engine.xr to use the XR code. Create an enum called handType with left and right as the enum values. This is going to be a public variable inside our XR hand controller class called handType. Other member variables we will need are a private animator variable and a private input device variable. In the start function, we're going to get the animator component, and we're also going to load the input device variable with this new method. So let's create that getInputDevice method. Unity XR has a concept called input device characteristics. Input device characteristics signify a characteristic for the VR input device that you're trying to retrieve. Here's a list of the input device characteristics from the Unity documentation. So a controller has held in hand characteristics. It also has controller characteristics. We also want to know which of the controller the device is. So we need the left and right characteristics. So let's create a variable called controller characteristics and set it to the input device characteristics dot held in hand. If you want to have multiple characteristics, you would use the single bar logical OR operator. We can OR held in hand with a controller characteristics. That's great. What about the left and the right? Well, we can use an if-else to determine the characteristics from the public hand type we set back in the Unity inspector. Let's do if hand type is handType.left, then we can just OR the current controller characteristics with the input device characteristics .left. Else, we can OR the current controller characteristics with the input device characteristics .right. Now we need to actually get the input device from the characteristics we created. Create a list of input devices that will be loaded with the input devices.get devices with characteristics, in which we pass the controller characteristics and the input devices to be loaded. With the specific characteristics we gave the input device, there should only be one device that is found with the search. Let's just return input devices 0. Cool. Now we should have an input device inside our member variable input device. Now let's do the animation. For real this time. Create a void method called AnimateHand. Declare these float variables as private: index value, 3 fingers value, and thumb value. We're going to load our input values, which will be determined by which buttons on the controller are being touched. Now we can use the input device try_get_feature_value, where we pass in a common usage to determine how much the buttons are pressed. These are going to be a value between 0 and 1. First, let's do input device.try_get_feature_value common usages.trigger out index value. This will load the index value with the amount the trigger is being touched. If you're not touching the trigger button, the trigger value will be 0. If you are touching the trigger button, some different value will be loaded, with 1 being if you're fully touching the trigger. We can do the same thing for the other 3 fingers with the grip button. Input device.try_get_feature_value common usages.grip out 3 fingers value. Then we can tell the animator to animate these 4 fingers by using animator.setFloat, index value, and animator.setFloat 3 fingers value. Now go to update and let's call the AnimateHand method. Go back to Unity and add the XR controller to our left hand prefab and press play. You should now be able to see your left hand's non-thumb fingers all curling when you curl in real life. You probably see the finger animation stuck in a loop. What we need to do is go back to the animations and click each one of them to turn off the loop time. And also, there seems to be a problem with the animations not curling all the way when I try both of the trigger and grip buttons. I figured out that I needed to go back to the animator's blend tree and turn off the normalized blend values. As far as I know, for the thumb, we're going to have to do something a bit differently. The values for the primary button and the secondary button are booleans. So the value is either 0 or 1. There's nothing in between. We're trying to animate, so we kind of need to do a non-discrete way of measuring how much these buttons are being touched. So first let's check if either one of these buttons are being touched. We'll say the thumb is down if the primary or secondary button is being touched. If one of them is touched, we need to increase the thumb value by some thumb move speed. Let's create that variable up here as public, defaulted to 0.1 for now. If the button is not being touched, we can subtract the thumb move speed from the thumb value. Lastly, we want to add thumb value equals mathf.clamp thumb value 01 and do the animator.setFloat thumb value. We use clamp to keep the thumb value between 0 and 1. Now go back to Unity, press play, and there you go. The left hand looks great. If you're wondering how we can get rid of these red ray lines, you can go to the controller below the XR rig and just turn off the line renderer and the XR interactor line visual. All we have to do for the right hand is clone the left hand. Then drag the right hand game object into the model prefab below the XR controller component of the right hand controller. Also set the hand type to right back on the right hand prefab script we made. When you press play again, the right hand is going to be rotated totally wrong. Let's go into the prefab by double clicking to fix this. Set the X scale to -1, then you want to subtract 180 from your Z rotation, or just try to rotate it to where your right hand is in real life. Okay, press play again, and you should see your left and your right hand both in VR, and the fingers being animated. Great! So thanks for making it this far in my video. If you could do one last thing for me, it's leave a quick like on the video. If you want to see more quick VR tutorials like this one, please subscribe or leave a comment about a topic you want me to cover next. See y'all later.